Okay, for today's warm-up, we're going to start off by doing jumping jacks for 1 minute. On the bell. Go! So you don't have to go really fast when you're doing jumping jacks. It's actually much better to be consistent. So if you set a little bit slower tempo, that's no big deal. Just try to stay consistent the whole minute. Starting to elevate the heart rate just a little bit, so start breathing nice and deep, getting your body ready for an awesome workout today. Got about 30 seconds left, halfway through. Very consistent pace, good job. Ten seconds left. In 10 seconds, we're going to be going to posture squats. Posture squats. Scraping your fingers on the mat. And go, posture squats. Keeping your back straight. It's best to look out in front of you. Don't look down at the mat because that's going to make you want to hunch your back over. So keep your back straight, looking in front of you, and they're just barely scraping their fingers on the mat as they go down. So posture squats. Feet should be shoulders width apart, toes pointed slightly out. Don't want to be pigeon-toed, don't want to hurt our knees. 10 seconds left of posture squats. Very good. And time. Now we're going to be rotating the head, just rolling the neck. You can go all the way around, all the way the other way, go halfway, one direction, then the other. Whatever you want, just get your neck nice and loose. Now some yeses, up and down. Now nose, side to side. Very good. Ear to shoulder, all the way, all the way. There you go. Now rotating the arms forward, circling the arms forward. Again, you don't have to go very fast. We're just lubricating the shoulder joints, stretching out the back, getting a little stretch out of the chest. Now let's go backwards. Very good. Now let's cross the arms. So just keeping the palms down, crossing the arms. You can alternate which arm goes on top. Very nice. Okay, here in just a second, we're going to get to mountain climber. So in the push-up position and alternating your feet. Let's go ahead and get there now. And then on the bell, I want you to go at a good steady pace. Go. Very nice. So on this exercise, obviously we're alternating which position our feet are in. Do your best to keep your bottom down so that your back is straight. And again, a good steady pace. You don't have to go super fast. If you go as fast as you possibly can, you won't make it all the way through. You'll probably make it 10 seconds and then have to stop. We are doing this for a full minute. Very good, consistent pace. Very nice. Halfway through, 30 seconds. Doing great. Keep those backs straight. You got 20 seconds left of this. After this, we're going to stand up and do jab, cross, sprawl. Jab, cross, sprawl. Doing great. Keep going. 10 seconds. Don't cheat yourself. Go all the way. And stand on up. Jab, cross, sprawl. Just keeping your hands nice and loose. You don't have to clench your fists. Just jab, cross, and then going down for a sprawl. So do be sure that you squat down and actually touch the mat or the ground first, and then shoot your feet back. Notice they're putting a hip or their belt knot directly to the ground, all the way down. Practicing our takedown defense. As if somebody's trying to shoot in and take you down, this is the defense for that. Only 10 seconds left. And time. Very good job. Okay, so we're going to finish up our warm-up with some more dynamic stretches. We're going to start off by doing trunk twists, so rotating your upper body while leaving your lower body still. Go ahead. Side to side. just listen to your body. If you're going so far that it's super uncomfortable, that's obviously a little bit too far. Scale it down a little bit. We're not doing this for any set amount of time. As you're doing this at home, do this until you really feel as though you've loosened up your torso. It's very, very important, especially for as much pivoting and twisting as we're going to do in our lesson. Okay, now let's go ahead and go to rotating the hips. So hands on the hips for stability, rotating, just making big circles, as big as comfortable for you as an individual. You can go side to side, you can go one direction for a certain period of time and then go the other direction, whatever's comfortable for you. Very good. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to ballistic stretches. So we're going to do a front kick stretch. So it's not an actual kick, it's just a stretch. So let's go ahead and get in a good stance with your hands up. Rear leg, keep it straight, swing it up. Let's do 5 repetitions of that. And then after you're done with those 5 repetitions, we can switch to the other one. So when you get to your 5th repetition, you want to go as high as you safely can. It's a great way to stretch, but it's also a great way to pull a muscle if you go way too far. So obviously keep it sensible. Very nice. Awesome. We're warmed up. Okay, for today's lesson, we're going to be starting off with the different stances that we use in Krav Maga and their proper terminology, so you know what we're talking about as we refer to them. The very first one is simply the neutral or passive stance. As we're standing right now, just standing around talking to somebody the way that we normally are, this is the neutral stance because I'm not really expecting anything to to happen or anything like that. I'm just standing around. The next one would be the interview stance. So as I talk and I use my hands when I talk, this is fairly natural because a lot of people do this, or I can kind of hold my hands like this, or just whatever I'm doing just to get my hands up and just be a little bit better able to block something and be able to handle something that's coming at me. So this would be the interview stance, as if I'm interviewing somebody. I'm talking to somebody and I'm not quite sure about them, so I'm not being paranoid, I'm just being hyper vigilant, just being aware, and so my hands are up just like this. If I'm really thinking that something is going wrong, I would go ahead and get into a guard stance. So I would simply step one foot back and I would really want my hands to be much higher or even out just like this. Now as we go through and do a guard stance, it's very important that we have our hands open as opposed to closed. This demonstrates or communicates with my body language to another person that I don't want any confrontation, I don't want anything bad to happen. My hands are open, I'm like, hey, stop, get away from me, I don't like you, whatever. I'm here, as opposed to this looks like I want to fight. So if I'm in a situation where I feel the need to take a step back and really get my hands up just to protect myself, if I go like this, I might actually escalate that situation and make it worse. So when we go to our guard stance, our hands are open. In addition to that, if I were to block something, to block a strike that's coming at me, if I were to parry something or have to cover, my hands need to be open anyway. As I close my fists, I'm kind of clenching and tensing my body, and my movements aren't going to be quite as fluid. So I'd want my hands open just like this. From those stances, from the guard stance rather, then we're going to go into some movement today. So if I could have you two get in the guard stance for me, please. They're both choosing to put their right leg back, which is fairly standard, the orthodox stance. Their feet are about shoulders width apart. Their elbows are pointing down at the ground to protect their ribs, and then their hands are up and open in front of their face to protect themselves. So as we're in the guard stance and we go to move around, it's very important that we never cross our feet. If anybody were to push you while your feet are crossed, you're obviously going to trip yourself and fall over, and then it's a ground situation, and then it's a whole different ball game. So their hands, or their feet rather, are nice and wide, about shoulders width apart, and they've taken one step back. As they move around, their feet can get further apart, but they should never really get closer together. So when we move around, we do something called step and drag. Whichever direction they want to go, the foot that's closest to that direction must move first. So for example, if you guys were to move forward, their left feet, on both of them, is the furthest into the front direction, to go forward. So take a step forward with your left foot. So that's their step, and then they drug their rear foot behind them. So it's kind of like they've got a big rubber band attached to each foot, and they can oppose the rubber band, and then it's going to pull it, and so they get right back into their stance. So again, your stance, your feet can get further apart, but never really closer together, because the closer they are together, the closer they are to being crossed. So let's take one more step forward, step and drag. And now let's take a step back. Obviously the right foot is their back foot, so that one has to move first. Let's go back one more time. Forward, back, Very good. Now let's really change it up. If I were to go to the right, or if they were to go to the right, their back foot is their right foot. Go ahead. They step over. Now let's step back over to the left. Right, left, forward, back, left. We see how it goes. So let's go ahead and get reset really quick. So if I partner these two up together, facing each other, and a very simple, easy drill that we can do to practice this movement is to select one person to be the aggressor, so you're the aggressor. Wherever he goes, he has to keep him roughly in the same distance. So if he moves forward, Zach would have to move back. If Matt moves back, Zach would move forward. If Matt moves this way, he's going to keep him in front of his face, in front of him where he can see him and protect himself at all times. So let's go and just move around a little bit. Just nice and slow. Go at your own pace. Very good. Trying to stay the exact same distance apart from each other. This is fairly easy to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to get fairly proficient with this. Very good. And time. Very nice. So that is the step and drag way of moving while in the guard stance. Okay, so now we've talked about how to stand, the different stances that we use in Krav Maga, and how to move around in those stances. Now let's talk about some straight punches. So from our guard stance, which again, feet are about shoulders width apart, right leg is back behind me. Also for mobility and for proper rotation, once we're doing our striking, we're going to keep our back heels slightly up off the ground. So with our hands up and our hands open, our elbows are pointing down at the ground. It's very, very important. We don't want our elbows to flare up like this. We want to keep them down. As we do our strike straight out in front of us, we're keeping our elbows pointed at the ground. So I don't want to flare up as I punch. I want to keep my elbow. So if we're going to do a jab with the left hand, I'm keeping my elbow pointed down at the ground. I rotate my fist over so that I'm striking with my first two knuckles. So my index finger and my middle finger knuckle, that's my striking surface on all these punches. So my hands are open, my body's nice and relaxed, so my motion can be fluid. As I go out, my fist closes, and then my hand is naturally oriented in a horizontal fashion. So I'm not punching vertically, I'm punching horizontally. So let's do that a couple of times, just straight out, keeping your elbow down, and then straight back in. Just practice going from your stance all the way full extension, and then right back in. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to hide my jaw or my chin with my shoulder. So I'm keeping my shoulders hunched a little bit, my chin is down, and then as I do this, when I'm at full extension, my chin should be hidden by my shoulder. I'm just like this. I'm kind of hiding behind my shoulders as I do my punches. Now the other hand would be the cross. So our rear hand is the cross. Now to do this properly, we really need to rotate our body and pivot on the ball of our rear foot. That's proper body sponsorship and body alignment. That makes this punch much more powerful than just the jab. This is essentially the power of our arms. I'm just going out. I'm gauging the distance. I'm gauging where somebody is. And this would be more of a power shot. I rotate, and there's a lot more of my body weight behind the punch. So let's practice that. With our hands up, let's practice keeping the elbows pointed down, going straight out and straight back in. Straight out and straight back in. We can start to add some speed, but we want to be sure that obviously we have good technique. So let's just go jab, cross. Very good. 1 and 2. Just get used to the feeling of pivoting on the ball of your rear foot. You'll learn for you as an individual how far you need to pivot, what's too far, what isn't quite far enough. Be sure that your jaw line is hidden by your shoulder with each repetition. Doesn't matter if you're throwing a jab or a cross, one of your shoulders should be protecting yourself just in case you're being hit as you're throwing a strike. Just staying protected. Very good. A couple more times. We can start to add some speed to it so you can learn what it's like to really snap those punches out there and do it quickly. Very nice. Very good body sponsorship. I love seeing the rotation. Very good. So all that's happening, again, as you're moving around and doing your punches, your feet can get further apart but never closer together. So let's add that into a drill. So our first little drill, let's just do very simple thing. We're essentially going to practice our accuracy. So I'm going to make one person, Zach, the aggressor, and I'm just going to have him go like this. So it's almost like he's clinching. He's got a tie clinch on somebody. What he's doing is he's creating negative space in between his arms, so that way Matt, our defender, is going to have to move around. So we're practicing good movement, stepping and dragging, not crossing the feet, not making them too narrow. And he's also practicing defending himself by becoming the aggressor, by attacking back, and he's working on his accuracy. So go ahead and make that tie clinch for us. So he's going to go through this negative space in between Zach's arms, okay? So I want you to go ahead and be the aggressor, so I want you to move around. Matt has to move with him, and jab cross. Left, right. Left straight, right straight. Very good. So wherever the aggressor moves, you have to move and keep them in the same distance in front of you, and then your jab cross. Let's go move back. Very nice. Very good, and now it's Matt's turn. So he's going to make this weird little tie clinch thing. Zach's going to work on his accuracy as well as his footwork, his movement. He's also staying in a proper stance the entire time. Very good. Awesome. So it looks fairly simple. There's a lot of things going on here. Again, we're practicing our stance, we're practicing movement, we're practicing hiding the jaw, body sponsorship by pivoting. All of these things are working at the same time, and your body just needs to get used to what it feels like to do all these things simultaneously. As you get a lot of reps in, you not even have to think about it anymore. It's really great. Very nice, and time. Good job. So straight punches, that's just a really simple drill that you can do, again, to practice your movement and your accuracy. Okay, so now moving on to instep kick. So we're going to be kicking with the instep, which is the top of your foot where your shoelaces are. So obviously you have to point your toes a little bit out in front of you so you don't actually kick with your toes and hurt yourself. So to do this motion, it's really, really important to understand the proper body mechanics in doing the full kick. As I do this kick, if I just use my leg, that's just the power of my leg, so it's not as much power as I could have, but it's also fairly short. I can't reach very far out. So what we're going to do to have proper body sponsorship and add our whole body weight behind the kick and also get some more extension is I'm actually going to bring my hips forward as I do the motion. So it's going to cause me to lean back slightly, which is okay. I'm getting much more extension and my kick is going to become much more powerful. So I lean forward and then I reach full extension at the very apex of my kick when I'm actually hitting my intended target. So to practice this, what I'd like you guys to do is essentially we're just going to start from our neutral or passive stance, and I'm just going to simply lean back and get my knee up. So as we continue doing that, we're going to go in, then we're going to start to just flick the kick out there. Flick it out there. Very good. And so you're learning how to do it fairly hard. And again, you're pointing your toes so that you're kicking with your shoelaces, essentially. You don't want to kick with your actual toes. Let's focus on keeping those hands up a little bit. Very nice. And now just full extension. I want you to practice going, just being still. We can go ahead and get in our guard stance now. So we're having our hands up with our hands open. And now just really flicking it out there fairly hard. And focus on, so we're almost trying to get our hips in front or level with the foot that stays on the ground. That's a good way to look at it. Okay, and time. So very, very simple motion. I'm going to go ahead and give a pad to Matt here. So now we can actually practice impacting something. Obviously, we're using a pad that's intended to be kicked and hit and all that good stuff. If you can find something around the house that's going to work for that, that's great. If you have an actual pad, that we call this a tombstone pad, that's even better. So what I want you to do, Matt, is just walk up, and so you can have your eyes closed if you want to make it a little bit more dynamic, or you can just have them open. If his eyes were closed, Matt would kind of move up and push him. Now he's stepping back, and so as he gets pushed, he needs to catch himself, and that's just going to naturally, he's going to bring his hands up, and it's going to naturally put him into his guard stance or his fighting stance, and then he's throwing that instep kick. So let's just practice that a couple times. And as a pad holder, Matt's going to kind of meet him with some force to ensure that his arms don't get hurt. Very good. Neutral stance, steps back into guard stance, and then kicks. Very good power there. Awesome. And time. Let's have you give the pad to Zach, please. So again, it's going to start off in the neutral stance, just standing around. You can have your eyes closed just to build some anticipation. You don't know exactly when you're going to get hit or from which angle, and then go ahead and move forward. He catches himself, Then he does it. So as your foot moves back to catch yourself, your hand should move up. Ready? Very good. A couple more times. Really getting those hips forward. One more time. Very nice. So now if you give the pad back to Matt, one way that we can make this a little bit more dynamic is, as opposed to just getting pushed and catching myself and then going into my stance and then throwing my strike, I can have my pad holder move around the room, and so as I get pushed, maybe I'll get pushed from behind, from the side, whatever the case might be. Maybe we can turn some music up really loud so I can't necessarily hear him breathing and walking around me, and then I have to orient myself to where my attacker is and then deliver my strike. So if Zach has his eyes closed, kind of right here in the middle, he can just pretend that he can't hear Matt. Wherever he goes, now he's got to find his target, then get in his guard stance, be sure that his feet are where they're supposed to be, and then throw the strike. Very good. Let's try that a couple more times. So being sure that his attacker is squared up right in front of him so he can deliver that strike. One more time. Very good. So that's just a fairly simple way that we can practice those instep kicks. Now we're going to take a look at wrist grabs. So several things to keep in mind when you're doing a wrist grab, when we're training how to get out of a wrist grab. First and foremost, just because somebody's grabbing your wrist, that doesn't mean that that is necessarily the immediate threat. Okay, for example, if Matt grabs my wrist, okay, he's not going to choke my wrist, he's not going to squeeze it so hard that he breaks my arm. This isn't necessarily the immediate threat. The immediate threat is maybe he's going to pull me off balance, maybe he's going to hit me. So being pulled off balance, pulled off my base, and then being struck, that's really the immediate threat. So I think sometimes we tend to think too much about what the technique is, so he grabs, and I'm going here and I'm doing stuff, and I'm just exposing myself to things that I don't need to. So take it for what it is. Be sure that you have a good base, a good wide base. I can drop down anytime I get grabbed, and then we can of course focus on getting out of the wrist grab, but just be sure that you're looking up at the torso so that you can see the arm in your peripheral vision, just in case there's a strike coming or something like that. Just take it for what it's worth. So the first thing that we're going to do is same side. So if I reach across with my right arm and grab somebody else's left arm, that would be on the same side of both of our bodies. So if Matt were grabbing me, it would look like this. He's reaching over on the same side of his body. Now, to do this, I need to think about elbowing his arm off of me. If my elbow moves forward, then that turns my arm into a lever, and that's what gets him off. Now, to support that a little bit more, to bolster that defense up in case he's a gigantic guy, I can make a fist, I can grab my hand, and then I can move my elbow forward. So I have a lot of people that want to grab and try to just pull their hand out. That's not what we're doing here. I'm not just trying to pull my hand out. I'm turning my arm into a lever, which the fulcrum is going to be his hand, and I'm almost thinking about elbowing his arm off of me. So I'm going forward with my elbow. So let's practice that a couple of times. These guys know this defense, so he's grabbing same side. He's going to make a fist. Oh, no, that's no problem. So he's showing that it's a lever right now, and that's perfectly fine. Do that a couple more times, actually. Very good. Good. So notice he's keeping his other hand was up. He's got a good base. Even if he gets pulled off balance a little bit, he can recover and take those baby steps. Now let's go to the other side. Very good. So elbows coming forward. And if you actually elbow their arm, that's great. That's awesome. Very good. One more time. Good. So again, the defense is simply using your arm as a lever, bringing your elbow forward, and then, you can elbow their arm, and that's great if you do, but you don't have to. You just need to be sure that your elbow goes forward. To bolster that defense a little bit and make it a little bit stronger, just in case it's a very strong person that's grabbing you, we can make it better by making a fist, grabbing the fist, and then as our elbow moves forward, we've got a little bit more leverage in pulling our arm, or pulling the wrist out. So it's really leveraging your arm there. So that, again, is the same side. As far as drilling this is concerned, there's several simple things that we can do. We can switch it up. We can do it back and forth so that we get a little fairly good at it, and then we can close the eyes and then not tell our partner which one we're going to grab. Very simple things like that. Now let's talk about opposite side. So if I reach across my body and I grab the opposite side, that's what we're referring to there. So if Matt grabs me opposite side, there's a different set of things to worry about here. We always always want to attack the space in between the thumb and whichever finger is reaching out. Sometimes it's the index finger, sometimes it's the middle finger, but that's where I always want to go through, okay? So from here, if I just hit his arm, that's not really going to do me much good because I'm not attacking the space of the thumb here, I'm just attacking the wrist. So I want to somehow flip that thing over. Now in a perfect world, I would bring this all the way around, wave at myself, and then palm strike it off of me, and then be here. But when an opponent is resisting, it's actually extremely difficult to wave up like this. It's very, very hard. What I really need to do is pull back to the extent that it's still going to rotate it over anyway, and sometimes it's kind of a weird like uppercut palm heel or something like that, just as long as I'm going the opposite way as the space here. So there's the space. If it's all the way over this way, now if I go that way, away from it, I'm going to get it off of me. So again, in a perfect world, when we teach this to children, we teach to wave at yourself and then palm heel strike it off, and I'm using body sponsorship, all that good stuff. With an adult that's really resisting, it's almost impossible to use your bicep to fight all of these muscles here. So I can just pull back, which also puts me at a good center of base here, center of gravity. And then sometimes it has to be kind of an uppercut strike, but at least it gets it off of me. So now let's practice those opposite side wrist grabs. If you're standing directly across from your partner, we're definitely going to do opposite side. One person is the aggressor at a time, so only one. So that way we're not confused on sometimes we grab, looks like we're shaking hands, something like that. So if Matt is the aggressor, he's going to reach over, grab, and then he identifies which of his hands is being grabbed, and then he does it. So now I want you to go ahead and close your eyes. So he doesn't know, he knows it's going to be opposite side, but he doesn't know which hand he's going to grab with. So now we can start to train really recognizing which one it is and then reacting appropriately. Very nice. And so notice he's going nice and slow. He's going at a pace that he can do it correctly, which is very, very important in your training. If you're consistently reacting to something incorrectly, that simply means that you need to slow your tempo down. You just need to go a little bit slower. No big deal. Very nice. So now, Zach, you be the aggressor. So Matt closes his eyes. He doesn't know which one's going to be grabbed, but there's a 50-50 chance. There's only two options here, so it's very good. Awesome. He's going a little bit faster, but he's still doing it correctly, which is great. Good. So again, in a perfect world, we would wave at ourselves with our palm. That's really hard to do though, so as long as we pull back and then rotate their arm, we should be able to do a palm heel strike and get it off of ourselves. So the very last wrist grab today is what we call 2-on-1, which means my attacker, or my opponent, my training partner, has two of their hands on one of mine, and we're doing this low, okay? So obviously, if he grabbed with only one hand, he has a free hand to hit me with. If he's grabbing me with both of his hands, this is definitely some kind of a pulling thing. So he's going to try to pull me off balance or something like that. So it's very, very important that I don't want to essentially let myself be pulled off balance. I want to squat down a little bit, make it harder for him to pull me away, and then I address what he's doing here. So again, I'm going to make a fist just like we do on the same side wrist grab. I'm going to reach in between his two arms. I'm going to kind of pull my fist up so that my elbow can rotate down, just like with same side, except I'm doing it vertically instead of horizontally. So just like the same side wrist grab, I'm going to reach in and grab it. My elbow is going to go forward, and then I come back. Now, my head is getting closer to him, but obviously both of his hands are occupied. So as long as I'm not going by his head where I can bump heads with him or he can headbutt me, I should be okay. So I make a fist, I reach in between, I've got a good base here, my elbow comes forward, and then I'm immediately back away. Very, very important. One more time, I grab, or make a fist rather, then I grab, elbow forward, and then I'm back. So let's practice that a couple of times. Let's have Zach grab Matt, please. Making a fist, reaching in between, pulling that fist out. Being sure, again, just like with the same side wrist grab defense, we're bringing the elbow towards the opponent. Very nice. So with your training partner at home, you can change this a little bit. You can add a variable by one, just grabbing, have them just practice, doing the getting out of there. And then you can have them grab really, really hard to make it more difficult, and you really have to do it correctly in order to get out of there. And then you can add pulling, so they really have to get low, widen their legs, make it harder to be pulled off balance, and then defend themselves. Do it one more time. Awesome, very good. Okay, so those are all 3 of the wrist grabs for today. We did same side, reaching directly across the body. We did opposite side, reaching to the other side of the body, and then 2 on 1. We had both, and then that's the low one. So it's not 2 hand on 1 high, 2 hand on 1 low. So let's wrap up today's lesson by taking everything that we just learned and putting it together in one drill. So one person is going to be the aggressor. That's going to be Zach for our first one. And then the other person is obviously going to be the defender. So Zach can do anything that he wants to Matt as long as it's something that we just did in our class. So we can do same side wrist grab, opposite side wrist grab, 2 on 1 wrist grab. He can get a pad, ask for some straight punches. He can ask for some instep kicks just based on where he's holding the pad. He's going to have his eyes closed the whole time, so he's going to know what to do based on how his partner is approaching him. Now remember guys, this is a reality-based system. So in reality, if I'm defending myself from a wrist grab, the wrist grab does not look like this. I'm not going to walk up and just hold wrist. I'm going to grab him forcefully and I'm going to jerk him. I'm going to do something. I'm really going to attack him with a little bit of intensity. That way he can, defend himself or practice defending himself against a realistic attack with realistic angles. If I'm going to push somebody, I'm going to push them so hard that they actually have to catch themselves, and they practice catching themselves in a way that they're on balance. They have a good center of gravity, all that good stuff. So make it intense. Now for this example, we're going to be doing it for 1 minute, and one very important thing that I want to point out before we get started is each time you finish a defense or you finish doing some punches, you always disengage. In Krav Maga, the disengage is almost like a technique in and of itself. I don't just do punches and then stop. That's the worst thing I can do. If I get pushed and I go and I catch myself and I have my hands up, I do my straight punches and then I step back but my hands are still up. And I stay here for a second and now I'm going to resume and close my eyes. So if I defend against a wrist grab, I'm going to get grabbed, I'm going to be here, I'm going to defend myself, and I'm going to step back, and that's my disengage. Now I'm done, and now I can step forward and close my eyes. So that's a very, very important thing that we're doing here. So for this example, we're going to do it for 1 minute. I'm going to step out, and Zach is the aggressor. Very good. Very nice. Awesome kick. 30 seconds. And time. Very nice. Okay, so now for 1 minute, Zach is going to be the defender and Matt is going to be his attacker. On this one, we're going to kick it up a notch. And this, again, these are just example drills. But as we do this drill, the other person, when you get grabbed, you can actually add some straight punches or some instep kicks before you actually disengage and get away from that wrist grab. So we're just going to kick up the intensity even a little bit more this time. So 1 minute on the bell, Zach is going to be the defender. Very nice. Great job today, everybody. That is the end of your first class. Now keep in mind, that was the instructional class, so we're really just going through and teaching you how to do those techniques, and I highly recommend that you go ahead and watch this class several times and redo it just so you can really raise your proficiency. Our next class, we're going to be drilling all the techniques that we learned today with lots of intensity, so you want to be sure that you have a pretty good mental understanding of what you're going to be doing, so the drills that you do, they're going to be very effective. They're going to be useful. If you have any specific questions about anything that we did today, please feel free to post those comments and questions in the forum.